A racist cop thought he was making just another arrest until his suspect pulled an FBI badge. The flashing red and blue lights cut through the night like a warning. A sleek black sedan rolls to a stop at the side of a quiet street in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The driver, a well-dressed black man in his mid-40s, exhales slowly. He knows this drill. He's been here before. Officer Daniel Reeves steps out of his cruiser, adjusting his belt as he approaches the vehicle. A man in his late 50s, built like a linebacker gone soft, with the kind of face that's seen too much but learned too little. He doesn't rush. He wants the driver to feel the weight of what's coming. "License and registration," Reeves orders, his flashlight already scanning the interior. No greeting, no explanation. The driver, calm, composed, reaches toward his glove compartment with deliberate slowness. "Is there a reason I'm being stopped, officer?" His voice is steady, professional. Reeves ignores the question. He notices the tailored suit, the expensive watch, the confidence in the man's voice. That alone is enough to rub him the wrong way. "You were going a little fast back there," he says flatly, "and you changed lanes without signaling." The driver hands over his documents. "I'm sure my dashcam will confirm otherwise." That response makes Reeves's jaw tighten. A dashcam. The nerve. He studies the ID. The name means nothing to him, but something about the way the man carries himself. It's like he knows something Reeves doesn't, and Reeves hates that. He leans down slightly. "You from around here?" "Born and raised." Reeves snorts. "Don't look like it." The driver doesn't react. He's seen this game before, played it too many times. But tonight, something tells him this one's going to be different. But Reeves isn't done yet. Not even close. Reeves lingers, letting the silence stretch between them. He's waiting for a crack, nervousness, hesitation, anything that gives him an excuse to take this further. But the driver doesn't flinch. That annoys him. "You got anything in the car I should know about?" Reeves asks, shifting his stance, his hand casually resting on his holster. The driver doesn't sigh, doesn't roll his eyes, doesn't react the way Reeves is hoping. Instead, he folds his hands on the steering wheel. "No, officer." "You sure about that?" Reeves tilts his head. "You seem real calm for a guy being pulled over." "I get pulled over a lot," the man replies, his tone unreadable. Reeves's lip curls slightly. He doesn't like this guy. He's too measured, too controlled, that kind of confidence in a black man behind the wheel of a luxury sedan. It gets under his skin. "Step out of the vehicle," Reeves says, taking a step back and resting a hand on his radio. The driver hesitates for the first time. "On what grounds?" "Step out of the car." The flashlight in Reeves's grip tilts slightly, illuminating the man's face. There's something cold in his eyes now, something calculating. A choice is being made in real time. Slowly, the driver unbuckles his seatbelt, keeps his hands visible. He's careful with his movements, not because he's guilty of anything, but because he knows how quickly these things can go south. As soon as he's out of the car, Reeves grabs his wrist, spinning him around roughly against the sedan. "Hands behind your back," he orders. "What exactly am I being detained for?" "You're resisting." A couple of bystanders on the sidewalk pause, watching. One of them, a young woman, pulls out her phone and starts recording. The driver notices. Reeves does too. "Sir," the driver says, voice sharp but controlled, "this is a mistake." Reeves huffs a laugh as he tightens the cuffs. "Yeah, we'll see about that." But he has no idea just how big of a mistake he's making. The cuffs click into place, steel biting into the driver's wrists. He winces, but doesn't resist. The last thing he wants is to give this cop a reason to escalate further. Reeves grips his arm and turns him toward the squad car. The man walks, steady, controlled, still refusing to give Reeves the satisfaction of panic. But the energy around them is shifting. "Hey, what's going on?" a voice calls out. A man in a grey hoodie stops on the sidewalk, frowning at the scene. A few feet away, the young woman with her phone is still recording, stepping closer. "He didn't do anything," she says, voice shaking with anger. Reeves barely glances at them. "Mind your business," he mutters, shoving the driver forward. The driver exhales sharply. "Officer, listen to me. I don't take orders from people like you," Reeves snaps, pushing him harder against the squad car. That's when it happens. The driver turns his head slightly, locking eyes with Reeves. His voice, calm but firm, carries a quiet authority. "You need to call this in, right now." Reeves scoffs. "And why's that?" The driver holds his gaze. "Because if you don't, in about 2 minutes, you're going to regret every choice you've made tonight." There's no arrogance in his voice, no empty threats, just a certainty that makes something in Reeves's gut twist. More people are gathering now. A man in a suit stops near the curb, arms crossed. A group of teenagers whisper among themselves. The recording continues. The driver shifts his stance slightly. "Call it in," he repeats. Reeves stares at him, grip tightening on the cuffs. He should feel in control. But for the first time tonight, something feels off. And then, just as the driver predicted, everything changes. The rumble of engines cuts through the tense air. 2 black SUVs roll up to the scene, smooth and deliberate. Their tinted windows hide whoever is inside, but something about their arrival feels official. Reeves stiffens. His grip on the driver's arm tightens just slightly. The driver, still calm, exhales through his nose. "Told you," he mutters under his breath. The SUVs come to a stop, doors open in sync, and then they step out. Men in dark suits, no hesitation, no wasted movements. The kind of presence that demands attention without a single word. One of them, a tall black man with sharp eyes, walks directly toward Reeves. His suit jacket shifts slightly as he moves, revealing the unmistakable glint of a badge on his belt. "Officer," the man says, voice steady, controlled. "Take those cuffs off, now." Reeves's throat goes dry. "And who the hell are you?" The agent holds up his badge, flipping it open just long enough for Reeves to register the words. FBI. Reeves's stomach drops. The agent doesn't wait for a reaction. He turns his gaze toward the man Reeves just cuffed. "You good?" The driver nods. "I'm good." The bystanders are dead silent now, phones still recording. The air is thick with something between anticipation and satisfaction. Reeves blinks, trying to process. What's going on here? The agent steps closer, lowering his voice just enough that only Reeves can hear. "That man you just put in cuffs, that's Special Agent Carter Wells, FBI Internal Affairs." The words hit like a punch to the gut. Reeves's mouth opens, but nothing comes out. Agent Wells tilts his head slightly, looking at Reeves like he's a puzzle that's too easy to solve. "And from what I hear, you just made the dumbest mistake of your career." The world tilts. Reeves swallows hard, glancing at Wells, then the other agents, then back at the growing crowd. He's outnumbered, outranked, and completely screwed. And the worst part, he knows it. Reeves's hands feel clammy. His heart pounds against his ribs, but his face remains frozen in something between shock and defiance. You're saying he's FBI?" His voice barely carries over the murmurs of the crowd. Special Agent Wells doesn't answer right away. Instead, he looks at the cuffs still locked around his colleague's wrists. Then, without breaking eye contact, he repeats, slow and firm. "Take them off." Reeves hesitates for half a second too long. "Now," Wells says, his voice like steel. Reeves's fingers fumble as he pulls out the key. His movements are stiff, mechanical, like his body hasn't caught up to the disaster his mind just registered. The cuffs clatter open, and Wells rolls his wrists, rubbing the red marks left behind. The crowd watches, still recording. They know what just happened. They know exactly what this means. But Reeves, he's scrambling. His brain is sprinting through excuses, explanations, a way out. "Look, I didn't know who he was," Reeves stammers, looking between Wells and the other agents. "He fit the description of—" "Don't finish that sentence," Wells cuts him off. Silence. The weight of the moment is unbearable. "You didn't know who he was," Wells repeats, almost amused. "But that's the problem, isn't it?" He gestures toward the crowd. "You didn't need to know who he was. But you saw a black man in a nice car and figured you had yourself a situation, huh?" Reeves's mouth opens, but nothing comes out. "See, that's the difference between you and me," Wells continues, stepping closer. "I don't need a badge to treat people with respect. But you need one just to feel powerful." Reeves clenches his jaw. "You can't." "Oh, I can," Wells interrupts. His expression sharpens. "And I will." The weight of those words hits harder than anything Reeves was prepared for. Then, for the first time, Wells turns toward one of the agents standing by. "Call it in." Reeves blinks. "Wait. What?" "You like putting people in cuffs, Officer Reeves?" Wells tilts his head. "Let's see how you like wearing them." And just like that, the tables turn. Reeves's stomach drops. "Wait, hold on." He throws up his hands like he's the one being wrongfully accused. "This is a misunderstanding." Wells doesn't flinch. He doesn't even bother responding. Instead, the other agent steps forward, smoothly pulling out a pair of handcuffs, the same ones Reeves just used. The irony is almost poetic. Reeves jerks back. "You can't arrest me. I was doing my job." "You abused your job," Wells corrects, his voice calm but firm. "And now you're about to see what real accountability looks like." The crowd watches, fully locked in. The woman with the phone zooms in, making sure she captures every detail. The man in the hoodie folds his arms, shaking his head in quiet satisfaction. And Reeves? He knows it's over. He can fight, argue, scream. It won't change what's coming. The cuffs snap shut around his wrists. For the first time tonight, he feels powerless. As he's led toward one of the unmarked SUVs, Wells turns to the crowd, his expression unreadable. His gaze sweeps over the faces watching, some angry, some satisfied, some just exhausted by the same story playing out over and over again. "This is why we record," the woman with the phone mutters. "This is why we don't let things slide." Wells meets her eyes, gives her the smallest nod of agreement. Because she's right. The problem wasn't that Reeves didn't know who he was arresting. The problem was that it shouldn't have mattered. How many times has this happened to people who weren't FBI? To people who didn't have unmarked SUVs pulling up to save them? Too many. And that's the real issue. As Reeves is loaded into the vehicle, Wells exhales and turns toward his colleague. "Make sure every report on this goes straight to my desk," he says, voice steady. "We're making an example out of him." And with that, he steps into his own SUV, the door closing behind him. The crowd slowly disperses. But the footage stays. It will spread. It will be seen. And maybe, just maybe, it will be the start of something bigger. Because accountability isn't a privilege. It's a necessity. This isn't just a story. It's reality for too many people. And the only way things change is when we refuse to stay silent. Speak up. Record. Educate. Because accountability isn't optional. It's necessary. And if you want to see more stories that expose the truth and spark real conversations, don't forget to subscribe. Hit that button, turn on notifications, and let's keep pushing for change, together.